I've always believed that if you're going to lie to someone, you should at least put a little effort into it. Cover your tracks, keep your story straight, that kind of thing. I'm not advocating for dishonesty. I'm just saying, if you're going to insult someone's intelligence, maybe don't use crayon and construction paper. My wife, Claire, apparently missed that memo. For the past 7 years, Claire and I had been what people like to call a power couple. I never really bought into that term. Made it sound like we were some sort of WWE tag team, body-slamming quarterly reports. The reality was simpler. I ran a boutique investment firm, and Claire was a high-profile consultant for luxury hospitality brands. Basically, she got flown all over the world to tell 5-star hotels how to charge 7-star prices. It worked out well. We made good money. We had a gorgeous penthouse in the city. We attended black-tie galas and rubbed shoulders with important people. On paper, we were a fairy tale. But if you peeled back that glossy cover, you'd find pages stained with indifference and boredom. I guess that's what happens when two ambitious people get married, but forget to factor in actual compatibility. We had both mistaken mutual drive for mutual affection. It worked for a while. We respected each other's space, applauded each other's wins, looked damn good in photos together. But there wasn't much left once the cameras stopped flashing. And I was okay with that. Really. I didn't need storybook romance. I needed stability, loyalty, and someone who wouldn't throw a Molotov cocktail into the middle of our hard-earned life. Unfortunately, Claire had different priorities. It started subtly. The usual signs, the kind you try to dismiss because you don't want to seem paranoid. More work trips than usual. Less interest in our occasional date nights. That little flick of her thumb swiping notifications off her phone when I walked into the room. Nothing conclusive. Nothing worth raising hell over. Until that morning. It was a dreary Wednesday. I remember because I had an early board meeting, and the clouds looked like wet cement poured across the skyline. Claire was buzzing around the apartment like a caffeinated bee, dragging her titanium Rimowa suitcase across the hardwood floors. Zurich this time, she'd said the night before, barely looking up from her laptop. Sounds glamorous, I replied, not really listening. We went through the usual motions that morning. Coffee, a quick kiss that barely grazed the cheek. She smelled like Joe Malone and fabric softener. Then she was out the door, her heels clicking a confident rhythm down the hallway. I didn't think about it again until my meeting ended, around 10:30 a.m. One of my associates mentioned the airline delays at JFK that morning, some issue with ground control, dozens of flights canceled or postponed. An idle curiosity led me to check Claire's flight. Just a little nudge from that annoying voice in the back of my mind. I opened the airline app, punched in her flight number. Cancelled. I blinked. Checked again. Same result. Now, I'm not an overly suspicious man. But if you tell me you're boarding a plane that isn't even leaving the tarmac, my eyebrow is going to twitch. I sent Claire a text. Hope the flight's on time. Weather looks rough. A few minutes later, her reply pinged in. Boarding now. We'll text you when I land. Love you. I stared at the screen. There it was. The lie. Neatly typed, wrapped in a heart emoji. Now, here's where most guys make one of two mistakes. They either confront their wife immediately, bad idea, she'll spin it, or they stew in silence and drive themselves nuts, worse idea. Me? I've spent a career reading between the lines of balance sheets and market trends. If you're going to catch someone in a lie, you need evidence. The kind they can't weasel out of. So I took the afternoon off. Not officially, I told my assistant to block my calendar and hold my calls. I had some personal due diligence to conduct. First stop, Flight Radar 24. I double-checked Claire's entire flight path. No last-minute changes. The flight wasn't just canceled, it had been grounded hours before she even left the apartment. Second stop, her loyalty program account. I had helped her set it up years ago and still had access. No Zurich bookings. No hotel confirmations. Nothing upcoming in her profile. Curious. Now, here's where it got interesting. I knew Claire always used the same email for travel confirmations. And sometimes, she used our shared laptop when she got lazy about packing her work MacBook. Sure enough, a quick scan of the email client revealed a recent confirmation from a certain Lemoore Prive. I'll spare you the marketing blurb. It's what you think it is, a discreet luxury love hotel, popular among the city's wealthy and scandal-prone. The reservation? Under her name. For the next 2 nights. Game, set, match. I sat back in my chair, heart thumping. The betrayal wasn't what hurt. We were already more business partners than lovers at this point. But the insult, The arrogance of thinking I'd never notice, that burned. Still, I wasn't about to go storming into that hotel or sending furious texts. No, that would be messy. And I like things clean. I needed a plan. Something surgical. I wanted Claire to feel the same cold slap of humiliation she had so carelessly served me. And as fate would have it, an opportunity was gift-wrapped and waiting. Our firm's annual gala was coming up in 3 weeks. Big affair. Black tie. Press coverage. All our key investors, clients, and partners in attendance. Spouses were always invited. It was part of the brand image. Perfect stage. Perfect audience. I'd let Claire dig her hole a little deeper. Give her enough rope to hang her designer-clad self. And when the lights were brightest and the cameras rolling, I'd deliver my gift. Smiling at that thought, I closed the laptop and leaned back. There was a lot to prepare. The game was on. It's funny how betrayal sharpens your senses. For the next few days, I saw everything with a new kind of clarity. The penthouse we shared, once a symbol of our joint success, now felt like a curated exhibit of someone else's life. The art on the walls? Chosen to impress Claire's clients. The wine collection? Stocked for her networking dinners. The designer furniture? Stiff and uncomfortable, like our marriage. And Claire herself? Oh, she was in full performance mode. She came home the night after her Zurich flight, all smiles and breezy chatter. Claimed she was exhausted from the long haul. Gave me a quick peck on the cheek and disappeared into the bathroom. I listened to the shower run, leaning against the kitchen island, watching her Rimawa suitcase sitting neatly by the door. Still had the little L'Amour Prive luggage tag dangling from the handle. Not even trying to hide it. That was the first real laugh I'd had in days. A dry, humorless chuckle. Like I said, if you're going to lie, at least put in some effort. But I played along. I smiled. I asked about Zurich. Nodded at her stories of hotel suites and Michelin-starred dinners that had never happened. Claire was in her element, weaving tales out of thin air. Meanwhile, I was laying the groundwork. First order of business, evidence collection. Now, I'm no private investigator, but I know my way around a paper trail. And in this digital age, you don't need a trench coat and a camera. You need a VPN, a little creativity, and patience. I started with the hotel reservation. The confirmation email had all the details, dates, times, room type. A little digging led me to their online guest portal, handy feature, really. From there, I downloaded the itemized bill. Room service charges. Champagne. Spa treatments. 2 guests listed under the reservation. Claire, and a name I didn't recognize, Julian Marchand. A quick LinkedIn search told me all I needed to know. Julian was a hospitality consultant from Geneva. Rugged jawline, tailored suits, and a professional history that overlapped suspiciously well with Claire's recent client list. Classic. Next, I checked Claire's calendar app. She used it religiously, syncing it across all devices. Sure enough, the Zurich trip was blocked out. No meeting invites, no client names. Just travel. And yet, the dates didn't align with any official consulting gigs her firm had listed publicly. I screenshotted everything. Emails, calendar entries, the hotel invoice, flight cancellation notice, even the Rimawa tag, which I photographed before Claire thought to remove it. Lastly, I called in a quiet favor from an old college friend who worked in corporate security. Discreet as they come. I asked if he could confirm whether Julian Marchand had even flown into the country that week. His reply came within hours. Julian arrived 2 days before Claire's trip and booked a room at L'Amour Prive. No record of him flying out yet. Perfect. The puzzle pieces were falling into place. But I wasn't done yet. This needed to be airtight. Because the revenge I had in mind? It had to land like a sledgehammer, clean, brutal, and public. I spent the next week acting like the world's most oblivious husband. I took Claire to dinner. I laughed at her jokes. I let her ramble about client meetings and tight deadlines. I even suggested we make a grand entrance together at the upcoming company gala. Oh, that would be wonderful, she beamed. We haven't been out like that in ages. No, darling, we certainly haven't. Meanwhile, I was orchestrating the second phase of my plan, preparing the package. I wanted something theatrical but tasteful. No screaming matches. No tacky viral moments. I'm a man of finance, precision matters. So I had a custom leather envelope made, embossed with gold lettering. For my beloved Claire. Inside, I placed a printed copy of the hotel invoice, screenshots of her boarding text and the flight cancellation, the itemized hotel bill with Julian's name highlighted. A high-resolution photo of the Rimua luggage tag. A copy of my divorce filing. Yes, I had already initiated proceedings through my lawyer. And, for the final flourish, a notarized letter confirming that I had sold my shares in our joint venture the day before the gala, cashing out at a tidy profit. Claire didn't know it yet, but when the lights went up at that gala, her life was going to burn down in front of every person who mattered to her. Now, I hear what you might be thinking. Why not just leave quietly? Why stage the public spectacle? Simple. Claire had built her reputation on the image of our perfect marriage. She used me as a prop, a shield. Every client dinner, every investor meeting, she flaunted our strong partnership. And while I could stomach the slow decay of our relationship, I wasn't about to let her rewrite the narrative as if she were the innocent party. No. She wanted a performance? I'd give her one she'd never forget. The days leading up to the gala passed in a surreal blur. Claire flitted around the apartment in a state of giddy anticipation, talking about her dress fittings and spa appointments. I nodded and smiled, counting down the hours. On the night of the event, I watched her emerge from the bedroom in a shimmering silver gown. She looked stunning, no denying it. But all I could see was the hollow mask beneath. "You look incredible," I said, offering my arm. She kissed my cheek. "And you look dashing as always. Ready to dazzle tonight?" Oh, I was ready. The gala was held at one of the city's oldest ballrooms, crystal chandeliers, live string quartet, the works. A black tie affair crawling with the upper crust of the financial and hospitality sectors. Cameras flashed as we entered, Claire clutching my arm with practiced ease. I caught more than a few admiring glances from her peers. The perfect couple. The power duo. We made the rounds, chatting with clients and investors. Claire was in her element, basking in the attention. I played the supportive husband, sipping champagne and waiting for the main event. Finally, as the evening reached its peak, the CEO of our firm took the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us tonight. It's been a phenomenal year for our company, and none of this would be possible without the incredible support of our partners, clients, and, of course, our families." A round of polite applause. "And now," he continued, "we'd like to invite our senior partners and their spouses to join us on stage for a special moment of gratitude." Claire squeezed my arm. "Come on, let's go." I let her lead me up the steps, the spotlight warm on my face. Cameras were rolling, live feed beaming out to our corporate network and social channels. As the CEO handed out plaques of appreciation, I reached into my jacket and retrieved the leather envelope. When it was our turn, I stepped forward. "Before we accept this," I said, my voice carrying through the speakers, "I'd like to give my wife something first." Claire turned, surprised. I handed her the envelope. "A small token of my appreciation, darling. You've worked so hard this year. You deserve it." The room fell silent. All eyes on us. Claire, sensing the attention, flashed a radiant smile and opened the envelope. I watched her face change, from confident to confused to horrified. Her hands trembled as she flipped through the documents, color draining from her cheeks. A collective murmur rippled through the audience. I leaned in, my voice low but picked up by the microphones. "Oh, and just so you know, I filed for divorce. Also cashed out my shares yesterday. You'll find the paperwork inside." Claire's mouth opened, but no words came. I gave a small nod to the CEO. "Thank you for the evening." Then I walked off the stage, leaving Claire frozen under the harsh glare of the lights, every camera trained on her shattered expression. The perfect couple, no more. The hardest part of executing revenge isn't the moment itself, it's what comes after. You don't walk off a stage like that and expect to blend into the wallpaper. The second I stepped down, I felt the weight of 100 stairs, like invisible fingers tracing every inch of me. But I kept walking. No hurry, no swagger. Just steady, controlled steps toward the ballroom doors. The faint buzz of whispers followed me like a wake. Phones lit up across the room. You could practically hear the digital hive coming alive, text flying, rumors blooming. By the time I reached the coat check, half the gala attendees had probably seen the words L'amour prive and divorce filing on someone's phone screen. Good. Let them chew on that. At the coat check, the young attendant looked up with wide eyes, clearly caught in the crossfire of the evening's sudden shift. Poor kid probably hadn't seen anything this juicy since a hedge fund CEO punched a waiter 2 years ago. "Sir, your coat?" she stammered. "Yes, thank you," I said, handing over my ticket with a calm smile. "Lovely event, isn't it?" She blinked and nodded, practically vibrating with curiosity. By the time I shrugged into my coat and walked outside, the cool night air felt like a baptism. Clean. Sharp. Final. A black car idled by the curb. I'd booked it earlier, knowing full well I wouldn't be staying until dessert. The driver, an older man with the professional detachment of someone who'd seen too many drunken galas and tearful post-affair meltdowns, opened the door without a word. I slid into the back seat and exhaled, a slow, deliberate breath. The adrenaline was still in my system, buzzing under my skin like static. But beneath it was something colder. Not satisfaction, exactly. Not relief. Just a sense of completion. The last piece of a rotten puzzle finally in place. As we pulled away from the hotel, I glanced back once. Through the grand ballroom's tall windows, I could still see the shimmering lights, the silhouettes of stunned guests, the frantic swirl of movement where Claire remained trapped in the eye of her self-made storm. I allowed myself a small, grim smile. Not my circus anymore. Now, here's where the story could have ended. I could have ridden off into the metaphorical sunset, legal paperwork filed, bank account freshly padded from my share sale, reputation intact. But life, as it turns out, doesn't always wrap things up in a tidy bow. There are loose threads. And sometimes, pulling on one reveals just how tangled the whole tapestry really is. The first thread came the next morning. I was in my temporary apartment, a minimalist place I'd secured weeks ago, knowing this plan would burn my old life to the ground. Clean space, clean slate. I was sipping black coffee, watching the city wake up through floor-to-ceiling windows, when my phone buzzed. Not a call. A notification. Claire, 17 messages. For missed calls. I ignored them. Then another buzz, this time, an email from our firm's HR director. Subject, urgent, request for meeting. I sighed. Of course. The fallout was already rippling outward. I clicked open the email. Polite corporate speak, but the gist was clear. The board wanted to discuss the recent public incident involving your spouse and its potential impact on the firm's reputation. Not unexpected. Messy divorces and corporate optics don't exactly mix well, especially when your wife's affair gets exposed on a live stream viewed by half your industry. But here's the thing. I wasn't worried. I'd prepared for this too. See, while Claire had been busy playing house with her Swiss boy toy, I'd been documenting everything. Screenshots, financial records, travel logs. Enough to demonstrate that the scandal stemmed entirely from her personal actions, not mine. I'd also sold my shares with full transparency, notifying the board well in advance. No surprises. No backdoor deals. They might call me in for a stern chat, but legally and professionally, I was bulletproof. Still, appearances matter. So I replied, politely agreeing to a meeting that afternoon. Then I turned to the next thread. Claire's messages. Against my better judgment, I opened the latest one. Curiosity, more than anything. Her words spilled across the screen in frantic bursts. Please call me. We need to talk. You don't understand. It wasn't what you think. Why are you doing this to me? Please, people are calling me nonstop. The board is furious. Julian left. I need to fix this. Can we please meet? Just talk? I'm begging you. That one made me laugh out loud. Julian left. Of course he did. Men like that never stick around when the champagne stops flowing and the cameras turn hostile. He probably booked a flight out of the country before Claire even left the stage. I deleted the messages without responding. Let her squirm. She built her empire on illusion. Now she could watch it crumble in real time. The HR meeting was predictably awkward. A sleek conference room. 2 senior board members and the HR director, all wearing expressions of forced neutrality. Thank you for coming, Robert, the HR lead began, voice syrupy smooth. As you know, last night's events were unfortunate. I kept my expression neutral. Agreed. We understand your personal life is, of course, your own affair. She winced at her own choice of words. But given the public nature of what transpired, we need to assess any potential reputational risk to the firm. I nodded. Of course. I anticipated this might arise, which is why I documented all relevant details in advance. I slid a folder across the table. Inside, a neatly organized dossier laying out the timeline of Claire's deception, the steps I'd taken to separate my professional and personal actions, and legal confirmation of my share sale. The board members flipped through the pages, their faces a mix of relief and discomfort. After a tense silence, one of them, a silver-haired senior partner I'd known for years, spoke. Robert, this is very thorough. We appreciate your candor. Translation. You covered your ass well. We can't touch you. I intend to cooperate fully, I said. But moving forward, my involvement with the firm will be strictly professional. I trust you'll respect the privacy of the divorce proceedings. They all nodded, eager to close the meeting and move on. As I left the room, the HR director caught my eye. For what it's worth, she said quietly, you handled it with remarkable restraint. I gave a small smile. It's all about timing. By the end of the week, the news had spread through our industry like wildfire. The Gala clip, conveniently edited by some enterprising attendee, was circulating on social media. Commentary ranged from sympathetic admiration to gleeful schadenfreude. Claire's professional accounts went dark. Her consulting firm issued a bland statement about her taking a leave of absence to focus on personal matters. I suspected personal matters involved trying to salvage the charred remains of her career. As for me, I spent the weekend in quiet reflection. I wasn't naive. I knew there would be more aftershocks. Divorce is never clean, but I'd made my move. Public, deliberate, final. And I had no intention of looking back. But then, another thread appeared. Sunday afternoon. Another message, this time from an unknown number. Please. One conversation. One chance to explain. Claire. Persistent to the end. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then, on impulse, I typed one word. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. My office. Alone. I had no interest in reconciliation. No forgiveness to offer. But I wanted to hear what excuse she thought would change anything. And maybe, just maybe, I wanted to watch her squirm a little longer. The game wasn't over yet. There's something oddly satisfying about holding all the cards. As I walked into my office that Monday morning, the place felt different. Lighter. Like I'd finally pried the dead weight off my back. The divorce was in motion. The company board had my back, or at least no knives pointed at it. My accounts were flush. My reputation intact. And Claire? She was a ghost haunting the digital halls of our industry. I almost didn't send that message agreeing to meet. Almost. But curiosity is a hell of a thing. I wanted to see her face. Wanted to hear what pathetic story she'd cooked up to explain away a hotel invoice and a public humiliation. So I sat behind my desk, black coffee in hand, watching the clock tick toward 10 a.m. Right on cue, there was a soft knock at the door. I could have told my assistant to show her in. Could have acted cold, clinical. But no, I wanted to answer it myself. Wanted her to see that I wasn't rattled. That I wasn't some broken man nursing his wounds. When I opened the door, Claire stood there like a model on the verge of collapse. Her usual armor, tailored suit, immaculate makeup was cracked. Her eyes were ringed with exhaustion. Her lips were chewed raw. Good. I stepped aside. Come in. She walked in slowly, clutching a slim leather handbag like a lifeline. I closed the door and took my seat behind the desk, gesturing to the chair across from me. She sat, knees pressed tightly together, hands folded in her lap. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she looked up, voice trembling. Robert. Save it, I said, tone even. You have one chance to speak. No games. No tears. No theatrics. I'll listen. Once. After that, this conversation is over. She swallowed hard, nodding. I leaned back, watching her squirm. It was glorious. I know I hurt you, Claire began, voice low. More than I can ever say. I sipped my coffee. Said nothing. I never meant for any of this to happen, she continued, fingers twisting nervously. It was a mistake. A stupid, reckless. You booked a 2-night stay at a love hotel with him. I interrupted, voice cold. You paid for champagne and spa treatments. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. Her face flushed. I know. But it wasn't what it looked like. I laughed. Claire, for God's sake. I'm not here to be convinced it was all innocent. You lied. You got caught. The end. She flinched at that, shoulders curling inward. For a moment, I wondered if she'd give up. Just walk out in defeat. But no, she straightened, eyes flashing with desperate resolve. It wasn't about love, she said quickly. Not even about intimacy, really. It was pressure. Expectations. You don't know what it's like, Robert. Always being the perfect couple. Always performing. I felt trapped. I arched an eyebrow. So your solution was to sleep with a Swiss consultant and blow up your life? Her breath hitched. I wasn't thinking clearly. I leaned forward, voice like ice. No, Claire, you were thinking perfectly clearly. You lied to my face. You faked a flight. You manipulated everyone around you to cover your tracks. You thought you were untouchable. She looked down, fingers tightening on her bag. And now you're here, I continued, voice softening with mock sympathy. Because the fairy tale blew up. Because your board is furious. Because your boy toy bailed. Because the industry is whispering behind your back. Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Finally, she whispered, I wanted to explain. I wanted you to know I'm sorry. I gave a humorless smile. Claire, you're not sorry. You're sorry you got caught. And you're sorry you lost control of the narrative. Her eyes welled with tears. For a split second, I almost felt a flicker of pity. Almost. Then I remembered the smug look she'd worn at so many galas, parading me around like a trophy husband. The late-night spin alone while she worked. The cold efficiency with which she'd lied, thinking herself clever. No pity. Not today. I stood, walking to the window. The city sprawled below us, glittering in the morning sun. You want forgiveness? I said quietly. That's not mine to give. Not anymore. Behind me, I heard her breath hitch. And as for your career, well, you built it on smoke and mirrors. If it collapses now, that's on you. She stood abruptly, voice breaking. Robert, please. Can't we at least talk privately? Fix this, somehow? We were good together once. I turned slowly, meeting her gaze. We were convenient, I said. We looked good on paper. We impressed the right people. But love? Trust? That died a long time ago. You just put the final nail in the coffin. Tears streaked her face now, her composure crumbling. You can leave now, I said softly. This conversation is over. For a moment, she stood frozen, trembling. Then, with a strangled sob, she grabbed her bag and fled the office. I watched the door close behind her with a cold sense of finality. It was done. The weeks that followed were interesting. The industry's appetite for gossip is insatiable. The video clip of our gala moment had made the rounds, and no amount of PR spin could fully contain the damage. Claire's consulting firm quietly severed ties, issuing a vague statement about mutually agreed transitions. Rumors swirled about her relationship with Julian and his swift exit back to Europe. Last I heard, he deleted half his social media and vanished from LinkedIn. As for Claire, she retreated into damage control mode. Desperate attempts at reconciliation with key clients. Hollow apologies. Private outreach to mutual friends, trying to rewrite the narrative. It didn't work. Her star had fallen. The circles we'd once ruled no longer welcomed her so easily. And me? I moved on. Sold the penthouse, too many ghosts in those walls. Moved into a sleek new apartment with no shared history. Took a long overdue vacation, sipping whiskey on a quiet beach while lawyers handled the paperwork. The divorce finalized swiftly. Ironclad prenup, no surprises. Claire walked away with a fraction of what she'd expected. But the real win? The one she'd never quantify? I owned the narrative. In an industry obsessed with image, Claire's betrayal became a cautionary tale, and my handling of it? Quietly admired. No shouting matches. No public meltdowns. Just cold, surgical precision. Exactly as planned. Months later, an old colleague invited me to a charity gala. You sure you want to be seen in public again? He teased. I smiled. Why not? Life's too short to hide. As I entered the ballroom, new suit, new mindset, a few heads turned. Whispers rippled. But this time, they weren't judgmental. They were curious. Respectful. I caught a glimpse of Claire across the room, clinging to a glass of wine, smile brittle as glass. Our eyes met for a brief moment. I gave her a small nod. Polite. Detached. Victorious. Then I turned away, joining a conversation with ease. The king had reclaimed his throne. And the queen? She was just another footnote in a story that no longer belonged to her. You'd think the final stamp on a divorce decree would signal the end. Clean break. New chapter. Everyone moves on. But people like Claire don't move on. They flail. They scheme. They claw for any scrap of the life they lost, especially when that life propped up their precious image. I knew that. I planned for that. And yet, even I underestimated how low she'd stoop once the dust really settled. It started small. Subtle. A mutual friend mentioned Claire had been asking pointed questions at a dinner party, questions about me. Has Robert been seeing anyone? Is he dating already? Do you think he's regretting what he did? Cute. Next came the social media reconnaissance. My assistant flagged a flurry of profile views on my LinkedIn and Instagram, all linked back to burner accounts with names like City Consulting 123 and Luxury Events Fan. Subtle as a brick through a window. I ignored it. Let her simmer. But Claire wasn't one to stew quietly. About 6 weeks post-divorce, I received an unexpected call from my lawyer. Robert, he said, voice tinged with reluctant amusement, Claire's counsel has reached out. I frowned. For what? The ink's barely dry. She's proposing mediation, he said delicately. Claims there are unresolved matters regarding reputational damage and public portrayal. I laughed outright. She's worried about her reputation? After the Gala debacle? Apparently so, he replied dryly. Wants to explore mutually beneficial arrangements to avoid further fallout. Translation: she wanted me to help rehabilitate her image. Absolutely not. Tell them no, I said. Firmly. No contact. No concessions. Understood. I hung up, shaking my head. The woman torched her own life, and now she wanted me to lend her a bucket of water? No chance. But Claire wasn't done. A week later, another threat emerged, this time through sheer arrogance. I was attending a charity event hosted by one of our largest former clients. Black tie, the usual sea of egos and inflated resumes. I'd barely been there an hour when an old acquaintance, a PR consultant named Valerie, sidled up to me, smirking. Robert, she said in a low voice. You'll never guess who pitched me this week. I arched an eyebrow. Claire, she continued, wanted to arrange a feature piece about her resilience and professional reinvention after a difficult year. I snorted. Let me guess, she left out the love hotel part. Valerie grinned. Oh, of course. Wants to paint herself as a wronged woman rising from the ashes. I shook my head. Let her try. The truth always catches up. Valerie leaned in conspiratorially. Word of advice, she's been shopping the same story to half the PR firms in town. If she finds someone desperate enough, it might still get out. Let her, I said calmly. It'll only look more pathetic coming now. But inside, a small part of me burned. Not anger, that ship had sailed. No, this was professional instinct. The same gut feeling that told me when a market was about to turn. Claire was laying the groundwork for a counter-narrative. And if I didn't counter that, the risk wasn't to my heart. It was to my professional standing. To my future deals. In my world, perceived weakness attracts sharks. Time to sharpen the knives again. I reached out to my own PR consultant, a discreet operator who understood subtlety. I'm not interested in mudslinging, I told her. But if Claire tries to rewrite history publicly, I want the record corrected. She smiled knowingly. Understood. Quiet, factual, surgical. Exactly. Over the next 2 weeks, we prepped a simple, bulletproof dossier. A timeline of the divorce and its causes, scrubbed of emotion but clear on facts. Discreet confirmation from key clients and board members that my actions had been above reproach. A handful of behind-the-scenes testimonials from respected industry voices who'd witnessed the Gala incident firsthand. No leaks. No headlines. Just ammunition, ready to deploy if Claire got too ambitious. I hoped I wouldn't need it. But then came the tipping point. Late one Friday, my phone buzzed with a notification from an industry newsletter. Exclusive. Hospitality power player reclaims spotlight after personal turmoil. I opened it. There she was, Claire, smirking in a carefully staged photo shoot. The article was pure fluff, a PR plant so transparent it practically dripped. After a difficult year marked by personal challenges, Claire X is emerging stronger than ever. A source close to the matter suggests her marriage ended over irreconcilable differences exacerbated by professional pressures. No mention of affairs. No mention of hotels. Just a sanitized fairy tale. But the kicker? When asked about her ex-husband's dramatic actions at a recent gala, Claire declined to comment, emphasizing her focus on moving forward with grace and integrity. Grace and integrity. I actually laughed out loud. She crossed the line. I picked up the phone. Deploy it, I told my PR consultant. No mercy. Understood. The counterstrike was swift and elegant. Within 48 hours, a series of quiet background briefings made their way to key journalists and industry figures. No headlines. No public statements from me. Just well-sourced whispers, confirming the affair, the fake flight, the hotel receipts, all fact-checked and verified. By Monday morning, the narrative had shifted. Suddenly, the industry chatter wasn't about Claire's resilience. It was about her brazen attempt to whitewash the truth. One particularly biting tweet from a respected hospitality insider summed it up. Amazing how some people can check into a love hotel and still check out as a victim. It went viral within hours. Claire's PR puff piece collapsed like a house of cards. Her lawyer reached out again, this time, not for mediation. For surrender. Claire wishes to formally apologize for any misrepresentations and agrees to cease all public commentary regarding your marriage or divorce. Good. I didn't respond personally. Let the lawyers handle it. But the message was clear. Checkmate. Life moved on. I returned to my work with renewed focus, deals, new partnerships, fresh ventures. The industry's memory is short when it comes to scandals, but they never forget how you handle them. And I had handled mine with precision. As for Claire, last I heard, she'd retreated from public view. Consulting gigs dried up. Former allies distanced themselves. She became a cautionary tale not for infidelity, but for arrogance, for underestimating the cost of deceit. And me? I thrived. Not because of revenge. Because I'd reclaimed control. I no longer lived in a performative marriage. No longer cared about curated couple photos or whispered judgments. I was free. And if you ask me, that's the sweetest revenge of all. Funny thing about revenge, the satisfaction isn't in the moment. It's in the after. In watching someone scramble through the wreckage they created, trying to tape together a life that's already gone to hell. Claire's life had gone to hell. And I had the front row seat. I didn't gloat. Not publicly. Not even privately, really. After everything, I wasn't interested in tossing gasoline on her little bonfire. I'd already won. The industry was finished with her. Clients distanced themselves faster than rats on a sinking ship. The PR stunt she'd tried? Backfired so hard it practically became a case study in self-sabotage. And me? I was thriving. Closed 2 new investment deals. Flew to London for a conference where I was greeted like a conquering hero, the man who dropped the mic on a cheating wife, as one amused British colleague put it over drinks. I smiled politely, laughed when it was expected, but deep down, I wasn't interested in being defined by that moment. It wasn't who I was. It wasn't the story I wanted to live in. Still, I'd be lying if I said it didn't feel good to be the one standing tall while Claire's world crumbled. But here's the kicker, just when you think the final scene's played, life throws in one last twist. A few months after the PR implosion, after the industry had stopped whispering and mostly moved on, I received an invitation. Not to a gala. Not to a client dinner. To a wedding. Not mine, obviously. No, it was for Julian. Yep. The very same Swiss hospitality consultant who'd been front and center in Claire's little extracurricular adventure. Turns out, after scurrying back to Geneva with his tail between his legs, Julian had found himself a lovely heiress, old money, new marriage. The invitation wasn't sent directly to me, of course. That would have been suicidal. It came via one of our mutual European contacts, a scattershot guest list meant to impress. And because the universe has a wicked sense of humor, guess who was not on the guest list? Claire. Word on the street was that after the scandal, Julian had ghosted her completely. Blocked. Deleted. Gone. She'd been left holding a very empty bag. I chuckled at the irony. The man she'd torched her life for had used her for a brief amusement and moved on the moment things got inconvenient. I wasn't planning to attend the wedding. No need to invite further drama. But fate, as I said, has a sense of humor. A week before the event, I was scheduled for a business trip to Geneva. My partners had arranged a private dinner at one of the city's historic venues, a place where the industry elite often gathered. And wouldn't you know it? The dinner coincided with Julian's pre-wedding celebration, hosted at the same venue, 2 floors above. I arrived, perfectly tailored, calm as ever. Did my dinner, charmed the partners, sealed another deal. And then, as I was about to leave, one of the venue's staff discreetly informed me. Madame Claire is upstairs. Of course she was. Apparently, she'd flown in uninvited, desperate to see Julian. To what? Win him back? Confront him? No one knew. But word had already spread among the European crowd Claire was upstairs making a scene. My partners urged me to stay, curious to see the fallout. I hesitated. But then curiosity won. I made my way up to the 2nd floor, not to insert myself, mind you, just to observe. The room was classic old-world Geneva, chandeliers, deep mahogany paneling, an orchestra playing soft waltzes. And in the middle of it, Claire, disheveled, wild-eyed, clutching a champagne glass with white-knuckled fingers. She was confronting Julian loudly, in English and broken French, alternating between accusations and pleas. You used me. I gave up everything for you. Don't pretend this wedding means anything. Julian, the epitome of detached European cool, simply smiled and murmured something to a nearby security guard. Within moments, 2 large men approached Claire. She protested, shouted. Then, as the room watched in uncomfortable silence, they escorted her out, heels clacking on marble, voice cracking. It was tragic and satisfying. I stayed in the shadows, unseen. She never saw me. But as she was dragged past the entrance, her eyes darted wildly, searching, panicked. For Julian. For an ally. For anyone. There was no one, not a soul. And that was the true end. Not the gala, not the PR stunt, not the legal surrender. This. Claire, alone in a foreign city, ousted from the life she thought she'd stolen. I left quietly after that. No need to linger. Some victories don't need applause. Back in the States, life moved forward at full speed. The new firm I co-founded was thriving. My personal life? Refreshingly simple. No curated Instagram moments. No performative couples dinners. Just real connections, real conversations. I dated here and there. No rush. I learned the value of patience and of vetting someone's character beneath the gloss. As for Claire, her name gradually faded from the circuits we both once ruled. Last I heard, she'd taken a lower-profile role at a minor European firm, trying to rebuild. Good luck to her. But in this industry, memories are long. Reputations stain easily. She were hers for a long time. Looking back, do I regret the public nature of what I did? Not for a second. Some betrayals demand sunlight. Some lies need to burn under the harshest glare. I didn't shout. I didn't rage. I let the truth speak, and when it did, it spoke loud enough for an entire industry to hear. And that's the lesson I carry. When you're betrayed, don't react. Don't flail. Plan. Think. Strike with precision. Then walk away. Head high. Hands clean. Because in the end, the best revenge isn't in the spectacle. It's in the life you build after, a life where you're no longer a prop in someone else's performance. A life that's wholly, gloriously your own. And mine? Never better. Subscribe to the channel